Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Science Not Silence stream, our end of the day recap with our lovely guests, Hita and Marie Claire. Yeah, actually, I feel like I'm the guest, kind of, because y'all started this and then I jumped into it. But thank you again for joining us, and I hope it was another productive day at COP. For all of those watching right now, I just want to say at the top of the stream, please, if you have any questions about the Conference of Parties, number 26, please put those in the comment and chat as you watch, as we talk about things, because we will get around to some Q&A at the end. So, Hita and Marie Claire, kick us off and give us the rundown. What happened today?
Hi, everyone. So, today is day 5 at COP already. Wow. Yeah, time is really flying. So, day 5 at COP, and today the theme of the day was energy. So there were a lot of discussions, a lot of side events, thematic day events focused on energy in particular. But in general, the negotiations have been progressing. There was a very important conversation that was happening on the new IPCC report that was launched a couple of months ago. And we will have a special guest who will come in to talk especially about that. He was sitting in the rooms when the negotiations were going on, and he can explain what happened in the IPCC negotiations. But all in all, it was a busy day, productive day. We had a lot of different meetings. And Marikla, you want to get a little detail on what we did?
Yeah, absolutely. So also for the Energy Day, it's really important for us also to reflect in the Global Youth Statement that we need a rapid transition to clean energy, but also that young people have access to this energy resources. So this is also very crucial, also reflected in the Global Youth Statement. And I'm very proud also to say that the Global Youth Statement has been distributed to many, many countries already. With this, we can make sure that our global consolidated youth voice is actually making it to the table, because the access to the negotiation rooms is still quite restricted because of the pandemic. But yeah, as you mentioned, actually we had quite some exciting meetings today. So the first meeting we had actually was with the high-level champions, for everyone who is not used to all of these terms. So they were established back in Paris at the COP, where the Paris Agreement was born, to especially mobilize non-state actors, because again, the countries, it's amazing if you have all the commitments, but we can't do it alone. Especially also the business and the private sector, the financing needs to come along and needs to support and make these commitments reality. So we had today a meeting with them to see how we can better align. Also for us, very important to align when it comes to young people. How can we support young people strategically better, also throughout the year, but also in the lead up to the COP? How can we support their action on the ground, but also in the negotiations? So this was very important for us to connect with them and their team and see how we can find synergies in their work. And also we had a very exciting other event today, which is called the Presidency's Open Dialogue. This is as the name says, it's a dialogue with the COP26 presidency, Alok Sharma himself, as well as with the executive secretary, Patricia Espinosa, and the team, as well as with parties. And so the basic idea of the event is that the negotiators, the parties, can exchange with the observer groups, but also with the COP president and the UNFCCC itself, so that we have a dialogue and we can find some synergies, but also can point out some pain points, right? But it's not going so well. So for us, it was several times mentioned that we really need to have like bold commitments. We already talked about the finance. We need to have concrete financial commitments, but also very important in regards to energy again, that we have like this rapid transition, that the countries are no longer, for example, subsidizing coal and other fossil fuels. So there are a lot of concrete ideas, but also how we better engage with observers and how we take them along, how we make them part of the process, also on a national level, very important. How can we support that the NDCs, the national determined contributions, are increased, and then so there were a lot of ideas for 1.5 hours. And I really appreciated this exchange and to see how we can work better. Also, we highlighted, of course, the Global Youth Statement, also the March for Science campaign, Science Not Silence, and it was also well perceived because one of the taglines is already mentioned is keep 1.5 alive. So it's exactly in line with what we have been asking for 2 years now, right? So this was also a highlight for me personally to see that how we can align in this regard. Hita, what else was there?
I think all in all, this was the big things that we did at COP, but we also had a few behind the scenes meetings. So, spoiler alert, tomorrow is Youth Day at COP26. It's Youth and Public Empowerment Day. So, we had a few briefings on that. We had a few internal meetings with the COP presidency's team and with the other teams that are involved in planning this Youth Day and have events as well. So, it was a busy day, so to say. And we're looking forward to tomorrow, which is super exciting as well. And we are also looking forward to seeing how the negotiations are progressing. We're almost reaching to the end of week one, and it's really surreal to realize we're almost halfway through COP in the next few days. We're at the end of week one, and we're moving into the last week at COP. So things are really picking up now. Negotiations are also gathering momentum. I think there's a little bit more understanding on the access to negotiations. It's still not clear. There's still a lot of people who are not able to enter the rooms because of COVID restrictions and other constraints. But I think we're slowly getting there. We're slowly at least talking about the issues and trying together with the COP presidency, with the UNFCCC Secretariat and observers together, having discussions on how we can make this more meaningful, more engaging, and a lot more inclusive, even within the rooms and not just at the venue. So I think this has been the broader updates, but we can then dive into today's special guest, Chet, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Yes. Hi, so I'm Ben, and I come from a physical sciences background. Today I was following the IPCC's new sixth assessment report. So the working group one had a plenary today that was reviewing the updated scientific literature. And it's very important when we look at climate policy that our decisions are grounded in the scientific evidence. And unfortunately, whilst the attribution of climate change to anthropogenic influences is very clear, quantifying that and quantifying those uncertainties is still a difficult task. The good news is that actually that attribution is becoming better understood. And since the last IPCC report, the fifth assessment, the uncertainties have narrowed. So we now know, for example, that the so-called equilibrium climate sensitivity, what happens when we double the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere, we now know that that range is kind of between 2.5 and 4 degrees. That's a narrowing from 1.5 to 4.5 degrees in the last assessment. And for the first time ever, the IPCC has put a likely number on that of 3 degrees. Similarly, we also have a better understanding of where current commitments on climate change will get us. So the IPCC, before COP, estimates that current NDCs will put us around 2.7 degrees. Obviously, today has also seen the announcement of potential phase-outs of coal. That may hopefully bring us under 2. We'll see what happens there. There is still a lot to be done, but broadly speaking, this new Working Group 1 report has massively narrowed the uncertainties and given us a lot more confidence to go forward with the science, and hopefully to allow policymakers and economists and also people in the private sector put this into practice and hopefully work towards a better future that is grounded in scientific evidence.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And while you're both here, I'd love to dive back into the fact that it is Energy Theme Day, and obviously we're going to talk about Youth Day for tomorrow. But before we do, we talk a lot about the presence of fossil fuel companies and agents of fossil fuel companies at COP. And so I just wanted to hear, from your perspectives, kind of what that feels like, and if there's been a lot said, spoken, or has anything risen from the presence of these fossil fuel companies in negotiations today?
Yeah, I mean, there has been a lot of conversation. I haven't, unfortunately, been able to be in the negotiations today because of all the other coordination work, but there has been a lot of conversation on divesting. There has been a lot of conversation, especially in the presidency's open dialogue that we had. One of the key themes was finance, and this was finance not just for adaptation, mitigation, loss and damage, but also finance in moving out of the fossil fuel energy system. So there has been a lot of bold commitments. When we were at the World Leaders Summit, there were lots of commitments on divesting. There were lots of commitments on moving into cleaner sources of energy. What we do need to see is how these actually translate into action, how these translate into the negotiation space over the next week and a half, and see what the outcomes looks like. But it's good to have a focus. It's good to start having these discussions early on in the week before the COP gets too heated on, so that we can move in the right direction. We can already build pressure and choose to commit to move out of the fossil fuel sector. But yeah, we're not there yet, but there is a lot of work to be done, and there is conversations going on.
Great. Yeah. Thank you for that. I'm sure a lot of our audience is questioning that, as a lot of us young people are. As it seems super critical that they would have such a presence. But that aside, I'd love to move on to International Youth Day. So that's coming up tomorrow, and I'm sure we'll get to talk about how it went tomorrow. But today, planning wise, are you excited? What are you looking forward to? And how do you think that the UN can really step in with some solidarity with young people tomorrow?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think we're definitely super excited for Youth Day. I won't say too much about the event in general. We'll keep that for tomorrow night. But the update is that yes, we're looking forward to engaging with all the keynote speakers that we're having coming together. We have quite a few high-level speakers, a few ministers that are going to be joining us. So it's super exciting. We will be presenting the Global Youth Statement, and we look forward to commitments on how they can take forward the Global Youth Statement. So no names, no details coming out yet, all of that for tomorrow night. But we're super excited, and we're looking forward to having these engagements, having these conversations throughout the course of the day.
If I could also just add to that, I do think there is a genuine kind of sentiment permeating the entire conference right now that there is a need and necessity to engage young people with this. And that's a change in tact, I would say, when we look at previous COPs. And perhaps some of this is a change, there's been a delay in COP. Maybe people are now realizing that there is more of a need to engage young people. But when we look at both multilateral policy making, but also private sector policies as well, there does seem to be a genuine desire here from most parties involved, both at the multilateral level, but also observers, whether that's businesses, whether that's charities, whatever. There does seem to be a consensus that they need to get young people involved in the decision making, and hopefully that will translate into action and substantive policies going forward.
I hope so too. When we talk a lot about YOUNGO, and for our audience, we've been talking with YOUNGO and about YOUNGO for such a long time, and about how it is the closest thing to a real seat at the table in terms of the UNFCCC by any young people. And so I think as we move forward, we're going to be working to expand that and to make that even more of a real legitimate seat at the table, so that young people have a voice further than, suggestion, and further than being required for photo ops. I think there's a lot of talk, not a lot of work in terms of integrating young people. So I'm excited for tomorrow, and for both of y'all to be there. And for our audience, you're going to find out tomorrow. We're very excited. But I think this is about our time to go to the chat and look at some of our questions that have been asked. So just to kick us off, and if anyone else watching right now has a question, please put it in the chat, and we will answer it for you. So Joseph asked, will they make carbon tax universal to all UN member states, particularly G20 countries? So just to preface this question, Joseph, we may not have an answer to this one, as this is a pretty high level question. But to all my friends at YOUNGO, do you have any answers for this or takes on it?
Yeah, very quickly. Thank you so much for this question. And it's indeed part of the discussion, but it's not part of the negotiations. As mentioned already yesterday, the negotiation items are pretty concise and pretty concrete in the language, and something like the carbon tax is not part of the negotiation yet. It's part of a lot of side events. It's a part of some conversation, and especially it also comes up in Article 6, where it's about the carbon trading scheme. But the UN won't be able to agree on a universal carbon tax. Again, the UN is a place where the countries come together, so they serve as a convener of the conference of the parties, but not as a body which can enforce decisions. I know that some of us really badly want this to happen, but it's not how it is. All the parties, all the countries have their, of course, the sovereignty. Also, the G20 meeting just concluded. So this is, I actually don't know if it was on the tape, on the agenda there, just because I have been very busy with the COP. But this would be definitely a better place to talk about it. Yeah, and also then put it in place. But also very important. I mean, yes, G20 are very important, but if you want to make a universal carbon tax, then we would also need to have all the others on board. But of course, the G20 could also start with this. But to kind of answer the question short, it's not going to be here on the decision-making table.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Thank you for that answer, Marie-Claire, and thank you for the question, Joseph. Now, that's all the questions we have in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and say to our audience, please tune in tomorrow for International Youth Day. We're all very excited about what's going to go on tomorrow. And we'll be back around at the same time, maybe earlier, maybe later. We like to switch it up. So just stay posted for our Facebook page, and we'll be going live. So thank you again to our special guest, Anhita and Marie-Claire. Any last words from y'all?
Yes, do have last words. So tomorrow is Youth Day at COP. All the events, all the side events that we're doing, the thematic day events are going to be live streamed. So please watch the live stream. You can find it on the UNFCCC website, and look for the webcast, look for thematic days, and you will be able to find it. So starting from 10 a.m. in Glasgow, please tune in and watch us live.
Great. Thank you so much to the March for Science audience, and tune in tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.